Okay, so back at our little Strife model, you've decided to throw away your stock motors and you've gone and bought some MTB rhinos from Duke because he seems like a nice guy and he sells them really cheap and he offers good prices on shipping and he's in America. So you've rewired and you've got 18 AWG wiring and 2 rhinos. So we can start with the 2 rhinos. So 1 rhino, 10 amps, 2 rhinos, 20 amps. That's a little on the low side. The datasheet actually says slightly more than that. Your wiring can easily take 15 amps. So if we have 10, 15 on the wiring side, the wiring is fine. The wiring's getting on the limit, but I'm not going to worry about the wiring for a minute because 18 AWG can cope with the loads on those. But if we go over this side to the batteries, your batteries can put out 8 amps. Even if you have 3, obviously you're going to have more voltage, but that's not going to increase your discharge by very much. If you do imagine a little bit of an increase in discharge, let's be generous and give them 10 amps. They're still only very small capacity, so that is being very generous. And the low capacity will not help the discharge because you can't take more from less. So with batteries, more is always more. So bigger physical batteries are able to discharge more. That is why the automatics this year are all powered by D cells, because Hasbro wants to get extra juice out of its standard crummy alkalines, and the only way to do that is to go physically bigger. So you've now got on this side, you've got your 20 amps going through there, and your battery is able to discharge a maximum of 10. So you can see that you are now pretty out of balance. That is twice the potential power of your batteries over there. So you're going to discard those. So you've decided to ditch your IMR batteries because they're not offering enough power, and you're slightly afraid of LiPo because you've heard that it might explode or eat your family dog or do something horrible. So you're not buying LiPo, you've bought a nickel metal hydride pack. Now, nickel metal hydride pack, feeding our 2 rhinos, you've got a maximum discharge of 25 amps. So if I borrowed 1 from there, that would be 25 on this side and 20 on this side. So again, balance in favour of the battery pack, good thing. This wiring is looking a little bit small, but it's not within what I would call a critical level. It's not ideal, but it's not critical. So if you were doing this in a rapid strike where you would add a 3rd motor, so you might have a 3rd pusher motor, which would be pulling potentially another 5 amps into this side, you'd have 25, and then you'd have, over here, you would have 25. So you'd still be just about balanced in a rapid strike with that, and obviously that is at the top level for your nickel metal hydride pack. It won't mean that you won't get massive problems with that. They don't mind being pushed a little hard, they do get hot. And cell life can be a bit reduced, so you won't necessarily get such a long run without recharging if you're running it on the limit. So if you're looking at a Strife, you're in the safety zone, and if you're looking at a rapid strike, you're getting towards being out of balance, but you're not out of balance. You get bored of that setup, it just doesn't do it for you, and you're looking to upgrade again. You decide that you're going to have some 180s, maybe you're putting in a DRS flywheel cage, and you've got heavier flywheels, and you really want something taste. You're now looking at this setup here, and now each one of these now needs, there's one 180, and here's the other 180. These are stall currents. Startup is closer to 10 each. So stall currents, you've got a total stall current of 30 amps for those 2. Your wiring, closer to 20, so that's going to have to go. Even really with 16 AWG, if you're using XP 180s, that is almost too thin. You've got, with your standard 180s, you've got a nice 16 AWG loom. Remember, the load's spread across multiple pieces of wire because you've got 2 wires running to the battery, and you've got several wires for the motors, so that's spreading the load out. So you're still going to be well within the safe limit on 16. You are probably not going to be within a comfortable limit at 18. You've then got, on the load side, you've got your 2 180 motors pulling 15 amps each. That's a total of 30 amps. Whereas over on this side, your battery can only do 25. So that means you are 5 amps over discharging even your nickel metal hydride pack. So you get rid of that, and you find yourself a LiPo. Now, this is a relatively small LiPo. I don't normally use it for 180s, but it was the easiest to fit in the frame. So my 2 of those are pulling that much Lego. So there's my current demand, 30 amps. And my LiPo is a 30C constant, 40C burst. So on the constant side, it can do 30 amps, and it has some capacity in reserve, in this case represented by some additional Lego, which has some bits rammed in the middle of it. So this is a 30C constant with 40C burst. So that means it has 30 amps and it has a little bit in reserve. It has another 10 in reserve if you need for short duration current bursts. For example, start up or stall, it'll easily take 40 amps. Your wiring should take the load that you have, and again, you're back in balanced. So there you are, you've reached the top tier. Yay, I'm a Jedi! Much to learn, you still have. But you've kept the system in balance. So that is the key, that you want the same amount over here. You want your current load that you're putting on the system. So that includes your switchgear, remember, and your other parts. You want your current load to be as closely matched to your battery capacity and discharge as possible. So generally, you want at least 5 to 10 amps surplus on this side to account for anything else, and also to keep your number of shots up by not pounding out the capacity of your pack. And that is how you balance the components of an electrical system. So you imagine the situation that you could have if you keep your IMR batteries with that. So there's your load on your IMR batteries. That's your current load, and there's your current discharge. Now that is not a safe situation to be in. If you see what happens to vapors when they get these batteries right down to sub-ohming, they call it in vaping, if you get them really low and you start over discharging them, those will still go bang. Just because they're safe chemistry doesn't mean they're safe. It means you have to treat them with respect and use them within the tolerances to which they are designed. 30 amps versus 7 or 8, not within the tolerances designed. So that is why I always say to people, if you're dealing with a rapid strike system with 3 motors, you really should consider your level 1 mod to be nickel metal hydride, stock motors. So you imagine you have your stock motors and your crummy wire. Your level 1 for that is just to put a nickel metal hydride pack in there, because it's not going to be overloaded by this system, and you've also got current protection for your crappy wiring because the thermistor is still in there. So even if you rewire your rapid strike and you leave the motors alone, the bare minimum for a rewired rapid strike has to be a nickel metal hydride pack, either 7.2 or 8.4. If you go over 9.2, the pusher motor can't keep up the braking and you get uncontrolled firing. So if you're going to run stock rapid strike, that is your bare minimum, I'm afraid. If you don't like that, then I'm sorry, I won't recommend anything else, because you'll already be overloading any AA size battery pack.